This was not one of his preferred destinations, Utah. He was hoping to get to either Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn.
Colin Murray Boyles.
I want to give you a chance to explain your reaction in the moment.
Oh, WTF for sure. WTF all the way till my name got called.
I handed the baton to Luka. The anticipation is he would have been the face for a long time. Plans changed. There's now that anticipation for you. How do you feel about...
This year's NBA draft was certainly compelling to say the least, and we're going to talk about the biggest winners and losers from this year's NBA draft, and there's a lot to say ad nauseum about both. We'll of course talk about Cooper Flagg some too. I mean, no one's surprised about him going #1 overall. I still think that it's very suspect how the Mavs at the first pick, but hey, nevertheless though, they got them a really great player right now that'll be able to impact them on the roster instantly, but also has great potential in Cooper Flagg as well. And when Kyrie Irving returns, depending on the health of AD and everyone else like that, Klay Thompson being in the lineup as well too, having Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, all those pieces, the Mavericks certainly will have a shot to be really good next year, depending on health, and we will see because that plays a huge factor. But Cooper Flagg is going to be really good for that Dallas roster. But I think the one thing I can't wait to talk about a lot in this video too is the whole Ace Bailey situation.
I'm not going to dump on him because he is in Utah now ultimately, but how the whole situation has really handled itself, I don't like it. But with that though, he's going to end up playing, guys. I think that that's what the matter of the situation is, and regardless of all the stuff where he wanted to go here or wanted to go there, didn't want to play in Utah, nothing like that, Ace Bailey, he's going to be a really good factor to that Utah Jazz team whenever he does play. The only thing I will say now though, with all this chatter and conversation, and hopefully his teammates don't look at him differently, another thing is too though, people in opposing teams and the competitors in opposition, they're going to have a target on his back because they may think that he's a little entitled. But with that though, Ace Bailey, he is a walking bucket,
and I think this kid is really talented. Don't get me wrong, he is really good, has all the skills to be really good in the NBA. Shot selection certainly was questionable at times. I know he said stuff about no shot for him is a bad shot and things like that. You love the confidence from him. Averaged nearly 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, shot 46% from the field, and had 10 games with 20 plus points. Ace Bailey was 8th in scoring in the Big Ten last year, and he also had a 39-point game last season as well too. Really talented player. But my thing, man, just go play basketball, bro. Play basketball. Let's hoop, man. You're playing in Utah. We get it. It might not necessarily be LA, New York, or somewhere like that. But I think that whole situation with not only free agents, but these college players going to great markets and stuff like that is so overrated, bro. We're playing basketball at the end of the day. If y'all want to go be celebrities and stuff like that, then y'all can be celebrities, bro. But this is about hoops. And Utah, in my opinion, we'll talk about them a little bit later more. I think they had a really good draft. Now impending the status of Ace Bailey, I just think that situation is crazy, but we're going to talk more about that. But I like a lot of these players in this draft, and I think it's a really talented 2025 draft. Players in this draft I really like. I think a guy that's top 3 to 5 on my board was Con Kneppel from Duke. This guy is really good. 6'6", 6'7", shooting guard / small forward for Duke. I think he's going to step into Charlotte and play really well now. I kind of feel bad for him for going to Charlotte because that situation is just a whole mess in my opinion. They have a lot of talent down there, but there's not a lot of organization in terms of the talent, how it's being handled. But they had a really good draft, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the summer league. I mean, they drafted Con Kneppel in the first round. They also drafted Liam McNeely from UConn, a really good shooter. I like his game as well. And they also drafted Con Kneppel's teammate from Duke, Sion James, and they drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton too. So that's a pretty good draft right there as well. That's a team to talk about for sure there in terms of the draft perspective. A lot of these players, I think they're going to be really good and impact their teams too. Is a player like a VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. I think he's perfect for what the Philadelphia 76ers need because they had a really promising rookie, Jared McCain, last year, who obviously got hurt, but they also had Tyrese Maxey. They have, we know, one of the best players in the league in Joel Embiid when healthy. Just the biggest thing with him is when healthy, and I think the 76ers, they could have a really good shot to win the East as long as their whole team is intact because, as everyone recognizes and knows, the Eastern Conference is wide open next year. With that being said though, the 76ers, they have a prime opportunity to finally get to the NBA Finals for the first time since they went with Allen Iverson in the 2001 NBA Finals. So VJ Edgecombe being a really good pick for them. I like his two-way ability, and he had a pretty strong NCAA tournament run too, but in his freshman season he averaged 15 points, nearly 6 rebounds and 3 assists, shooting essentially 44% from the field. And I think he's going to provide some good athleticism and versatility to that Philadelphia 76ers team that is also building a young core for right now, but also building some pieces to compete simultaneously at the same time too. So I really like that. And VJ Edgecombe is going to be a good fit for them at that shooting guard position. Dylan Harper going to the San Antonio Spurs, that's for sure a best available type of pick because they're pretty loaded at the guard position now down there in San Antonio, but they have a pretty significant young core themselves right now. And that's a really good thing. They have a lot of talent that is being built. I won't say necessarily the same way as Oklahoma City, but they had 2 players to win Rookie of the Year in a row, of course, with Victor Wembanyama, and then this past season with Stephon Castle. Now they drafted Dylan Harper, another guard who I think, depending on the whole minute situation, because they just traded for De'Aaron Fox before the trade deadline this year, Dylan Harper, he has a potential to be a really good guard for them. A 6'6", 6'5" point guard is going to be able to fit right into that young system. And also, I like another pick that they had at the 14th pick at the end of the lottery, drafting a Carter Bryant from Arizona, who provides some really good two-way ability defensively, and he can also be a good 3-and-D wing for that team as well. So San Antonio, they're certainly building something down there. I expect them, depending on health, to hopefully be around the top 6 seed this upcoming season. And they had a really good draft in terms of just picking those 2 players alone. And it just really intrigues me to see how that goes for the long term, because like I said, they just traded for De'Aaron Fox, but depending on if a player like Dylan Harper, if he's a player that we think that he will be, being the second best player in this draft, does that offer some flexibility in terms of the status of De'Aaron Fox for the future? Because you have a guy now and a point guard, Dylan Harper, who is 8 to 9 years younger than De'Aaron Fox. So that's something to monitor for sure, I think, in my opinion. But the Spurs, they're continuing to build that culture, which we already know has a championship pedigree, winning 5 rings in the Greg Popovich era, and now in this new era under Mitch Johnson, they're trying to build something special as well too. Some other picks that I like, Trey Johnson to Washington. They're building themselves a pretty good young core too as well, with already having players like Above Carrington, Alex Sarr, and Kayshawn George. Some really good picks last season. And this year, like I said, them drafting Trey Johnson, a really good young scorer from UT. Played with my high school teammate Tremont Mark last year at Texas, and I got to see a lot of Trey Johnson. He is a really good scorer. In ways, he kind of reminds me of a Cam Johnson from Brooklyn, but I think that he maybe has some more scoring potential and overall potential, because I just think that he's an effortless scorer. Trey Johnson, he averaged essentially 20 points per game, shot 43% from the field, nearly 40% from 3. He's going to be able to slide right in and impact that Washington Wizards team instantly, and I'm looking forward to seeing his Summer League highlights too as well, because that's going to be a fun thing to watch. And man, I really wish I was going to be at the Summer League again this year, because last year, y'all know if y'all watched my channel, I was there and made a vlog and everything. It was a really fun experience, guys. But anyways, that was really cool. But one team I think that made some interesting moves, I don't know if by interesting, I don't know if that means good or not. I think it means a we'll see type of approach, is the Brooklyn Nets, because they had 5 first-round picks. A lot of people expected them to package their picks and maybe try to trade for someone or try to get a higher spot in the draft, and really they just ended up drafting all their picks in the first round, which was a move, I would say. And a lot of people looked at their first round pick at 8 overall, drafting Igor Denman, the guard from BYU, as a reach. He's a really good point guard / point forward at that 6'8" frame, but not the best shooter. Shot under 30% from 3, but he's a really good playmaker. I will give him that, and he had some really good moments at BYU. So we'll see how he impacts that Brooklyn Nets team. Apparently, he had a really good individual workout, so I mean that will definitely do it in terms of a team making you higher on their board, prioritize drafting you over other prospects. So that's a good thing for him. So only time will tell with that. But the other picks that they also picked too, Nolan Traore, guard from France. And that's one thing I kind of got away from this draft too as well, that France is coming, guys. Like, that's one thing that we have to take away, because these prospects, the past 2 drafts, we saw it with Zachariah Richeche being drafted #1 overall in the 2024 draft. Even though that wasn't the strongest draft, that's a French player. Alex Sarr being drafted last year, that's another French player. Nolan Traore, that's a French player from Brooklyn. But also with him, there was a total of 6 French players drafted in the 2025 NBA draft. 3 were in the first round and 3 in the second round. So this country, they're coming for sure. And I know USA, we're still king in terms of, you know, the Olympics and, you know, creating the best players and stuff like that too. But these countries are getting better. So that's one thing to take away for sure. But moving things back to talking about Brooklyn, drafted Nolan Traore from France. That's another guard right there. They just drafted a lot of depth, I feel like. And I think that's a solid approach too. They also drafted Ben Seraph, guard position. Denny Wolford from Michigan as well too. So we'll see how things go for sure. And a lot of people also talked about this trade that the New Orleans Pelicans made to trade back up to get Derek Queen after drafting Jeremiah Fears in the first round. They traded their first round pick next year to Atlanta, an unprotected first round pick that could end up being a really high pick to go get Derek Queen. I think Derek Queen is going to be a really good player and a really good pro. I don't know if I would have traded a first round pick to try to get back into it, but hey, maybe New Orleans is right about that, and Joe Dumars is their new general manager as well too, so maybe they know something that a lot of people don't. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting moves in this draft, not only in the first round but also in the second round too. I think there could be some hidden gems for sure, but I really look forward always to the NBA NBA draft every single year. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the 2024 draft wasn't necessarily the strongest in terms of a talent perspective, but there's always going to be some talent out of every NBA draft. There's at least going to be one star, and in this star there is the potential to be multiple, because now we're entering the time where the NBA draft is getting a lot of talented players. We obviously know Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, BJ Edgecombe. I mean, like I mentioned, Conkenepo too. I think he was really high on my board. Shoot, Ace Bailey, if he can get his head on straight and really just hoop and play basketball, he could end up being the best player out of this draft too, guys. So like I said, there's just a lot of talent in this draft, and I'm really ready to break down these teams and talk about the biggest winners and losers. And that also leads me to talk about one thing that's really crazy too. I talked about it a little bit on my Instagram, but these kids getting drafted now were born in 2006. This is crazy. Like, it makes me feel so old. I mean, I was born in the 2000s as well too, born in 02, but like, it's crazy to think about that. Like, I vividly remember the year, like, you know, 2006, 2007. Obviously I was a little kid and stuff like that too though, but like, time goes by fast, guys. But anyways, that's something totally separate. But like I said, this NBA draft I think is going to be really good in terms of these prospects, and also I'm looking forward to the summer league. I mean, of course, one clickbait game that a lot of people have looking forward to is the whole game between the Lakers and the Mavericks. Cooper Flag playing against the Lakers and Bronny James. That's going to be pretty cool to see too. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that too as well, guys. And we also got to talk about the Phoenix Suns, because, you know, they look like they were deadlocked in terms of their situation. They obviously traded Kevin Durant to try to get a little draft relief, which they kind of did pretty solid, I would say. But we'll talk about them a little bit more, guys. But yeah, we're going to talk about the biggest winners and losers from this year's NBA draft. A lot to talk about in terms of how it impacts not only free agency, but this upcoming 2025-26 season. So y'all get y'all popcorn ready and get ready to see if your team was a winner in this year's NBA draft or a loser. We will see. But with that being said though, guys, before we dive deeper into this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. We post videos here about the NBA, NFL, Marvel, DC, pop culture, all content like that. It's the summer right now. I know a lot of people look at it as the dog days in terms of not a lot of sports being on, but there's still a lot to talk about from an NBA offseason perspective, NFL offseason as well too, as training camp nears, and it will be here in the next 3.5 weeks. So stay tuned for content around that and all the NFL teams that I'm previewing. But with that being said, let's talk about the biggest winners and losers from this year's NBA draft. Winner number one, of course, the Dallas Mavericks drafting Cooper Flag. Jason Kidd already talked about in the opening press conference how he sees Cooper Flag playing a lot of point guard in that Mavericks lineup, and really he's just in a great situation. I think Cooper Flag and the Mavericks are winners because he's going to a situation that's going to not only teach him the right habits in terms of winning and learning around players who have won at the highest level, like Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, but also he's getting coached by one of the greatest point guards of all time in Jason Kidd, and an NBA champion and a coach who was just in the NBA Finals a season and change ago in the 2024 NBA Finals. So that's gonna not only benefit him, but just help him grow into a great player. And I would still favor him to be a Rookie of the Year. I mean, I know he's playing with a lot of good players, but like I said, we all know Kyrie Irving isn't returning until at least January, February, or something like that after the All-Star break. So that's just gonna provide him instantly to make an impact on the game right away. We all know that. Cooper Flag, at the 6'8", 6'9" frame, being the type of two-way player that he is too. His motor is high. He's a really good shooter. As you look at his stats, as we all know, average 19 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 48% from the field, and almost 39% from three. Really efficient. And if you look at the NCAA tournament numbers as well too, he averaged 21 points, almost 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in that whole NCAA tournament. Really impressive. And mind you, he played a chunk of the season at 17 years old as well too. Didn't turn 18 until December. I think that's really impressive in itself. And remember, he reclassified, guys. So this kid has a lot of talent. I mean, you can make the argument that he could have been NBA ready last year. Obviously, you know, the rules are different and stuff like that. But Cooper Flag, he's a really, really great prospect, and dare I say generational prospect. I know a lot of people throw around that word not only in the NBA but also in the NFL in terms of draft prospect. But I think it certainly applies here, and a lot of people try to comp Cooper Flag to a Grant Hill or a Scottie Pippen, or in ways Jason Tatum or something like that. I think he's a hybrid, a lot of different players. I've heard Andre Karolinko too combined with a Grant Hill and stuff like that too. Let's just let Cooper Flag be who he is, and then in the future we'll be comparing other players to Cooper Flag, because I think that's the standard right there. I mean, I think that he's going to be a really good player, and defensively too as well. He's going to take a lot of pride on that end, so that's just going to help further them, and that aligns perfectly with Nico Harrison's philosophy in terms of players who play defense and stuff like that too. Still think that was a stupid trade, trading Luka. I'm a Luka fan, so I'm biased, but hey, it ended up working out for them. I'm not going to say they got lucky, but they definitely did, so oh well. But Cooper Flag going to Dallas, that's going to be a really good situation for them, and they won ultimately, because I know their fans, a lot of them were pissed at Nico Harrison. I think a lot of them still are pissed at Nico Harrison. I think a lot of them, even if they were to win a championship in the future, I still think they would be pissed about it, and that says a lot. But hey, the Mavericks, they certainly won in this situation, and Cooper Flag did too, because he's not going to a dumpster fire of a situation, having to just put up empty stats and lose 60 games and end up in the lottery for years to come. So it's a good thing for Cooper Flag, because he's in a winning situation. The Dallas Mavericks, they have a lot of good things going for them now with him being there, so they're for sure a winner. Look no further than the Spurs, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, drafting a Dylan Harper, drafting Carter Bryant. 2 lottery picks that are going to step right in and being able to impact that young core with Victor Wembanyama, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, among other players. And like I mentioned, with them recently trading for De'Aaron Fox, this is a really talented team now. And the expectation, like I said, they should be in the playoffs this season. I don't think there's any people that don't echo those same sentiments. As long as Wemby stays healthy, we all recognize and know that he would have been Defensive Player of the Year if he didn't have that whole blood clot issue. And hopefully he's able to stay healthy this season and no injuries like that of that level or just anything similar in that nature play into that. Because I mean, I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year as long as he does stay healthy, and he'll be an all-star this year too. We all recognize the type of talent that this team has, and Dylan Harper being the type of guard that he is, I think that he's going to be able to step in right away and be a really good floor general. I think I'll expect him for sure to come off the bench, at least at first. Like I said, the whole fit is kind of awkward in terms of with De'Aaron Fox being there. I talked to my friend Keelan about that. I talked to my friend Ian about that, who also loves the NBA draft now, and I provide his channels information down below too, because he has a lot of great breakdowns not only for the NBA but also NFL. But Dylan Harper, I mean, him going to the Spurs, I like that fit, just how he's just able to provide another piece that's going to be able to instantly impact and help their roster from a talent perspective and get instant buckets, not only for himself but also create for other players on the roster too. Because if you look at what he did at Rutgers, even though that team wasn't good at all, and I can talk about that a little bit more when I talk about Ace Bailey, he averaged 19.5 points per game and 4 rebounds and 4 assists and shot 48% from the field. So he's going to be able to provide a pretty good points to assist ratio to that roster and just being able to be a good playmaker for that team too. And Carter Bryant, his stats weren't necessarily eye-popping in terms of that. Not every player is. If you look at those players in college, especially at his age, he's 19, going to be 20 this year. He's just a player who has a high motor and who's going to really be able to, like I said, lock down defensively and being able to really breed that San Antonio culture and being able to help from a shooting perspective as well too, because he did shoot 37% from the 3-point line. So I like those 2 picks of Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, and they're going to be able to really perfectly fit into that San Antonio Spurs culture and young core. Another team that I low-key think were kind of winners of the draft, even though they didn't have a draft pick because they included that in the Kevin Durant deal, but were the Houston Rockets, because for the same reason why they won that Kevin Durant trade. They have most of the young core still intact besides Jalen Green, and there's been some swirling rumors about the Rockets being open to trading Cam Whitmore. Now, honestly, I wouldn't like that for their perspective. I mean, if they were able to trade him, get, you know, a good role player that can shoot, I guess, but I think Cam Whitmore, he can really be utilized off of the bench really well, and he's had a lot of games where he's shown his true scoring prowess and potential, and he's a dynamic athlete. Still only 20 years old, turns 21 in July. I think that the Rockets should keep him for sure. But besides that though, that just is going into my idea of why the Rockets, they still won the draft, because they have a lot of young players still, and then they were able to bring in an all-time great scorer in Kevin Durant, who's going to be able to help potentially elevate their offense even more to helping them get a deep playoff run. So I think they're also a low-key winner, even despite not having any actual draft picks in the first or second round of the 2025 NBA draft. I want to talk about the Hawks, how they were able to get that unprotected first round pick from the New Orleans Pelicans, like I said, after the Pelicans wanted Derek Queen. I like that. And they did draft Drake Powell in the first round, guard from North Carolina, which is a solid pick, but I'm more so giving them a winning grade because they got that first round pick that could be really good next year. Now, the Pelicans, they could end up being, I guess, maybe a 10th seed or something like that, but I really don't expect much at all for them next year, because we all know the Western Conference is loaded, and it was tough enough this year. It's going to be even tougher next year with teams like the Rockets trading for Kevin Durant. Now the Spurs are going to be in the mix too with all the talent they have. The Mavericks as well too. You still have the Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Thunder, of course, everyone is chasing them. The Nuggets too, they're trying to be back. They obviously have Nikola Jokic, you have the Clippers, you have all of these teams in the Western Conference. You can make the argument that 12, the 13, the 14 teams will have an opportunity to make the playoffs next year, and that the Pelicans might not be one of them. So with that being said though, I think the Hawks are winners, because not only that, getting that potential unprotected first round pick in addition to the pick that they'll have next year, they also traded for Porzingis as well too, and they have Trae Young. They're trying to open up that opportunity there as well, and they're in the ATL to open their window. And like I said, with the East being wide open next year, they have an opportunity to potentially compete, because we know they had that little run in 2021 making the conference finals and losing to Milwaukee, but they still made it there when no one expected them to. And hey, you never know what Atlanta can do. But that leads me to talk about another team who I think were really big winners, not only in the first round but also in the second round, in the Orlando Magic. I really love what they did in the first round, drafting Jace Richardson. We all know the type of NCAA tournament run that he had, and we all know Jason Richardson is his father. Really good NBA player that played in the league for a long time, playing for the Warriors among other teams. That was very notable, and an NBA slam dunk champion. But talking about Jace Richardson real quick, I think Jace Richardson, he's going to be able to provide some more scoring and depth at that guard position, which they really need off of the bench. We know that trade they just had for Desmond Bane, and they got off a couple players like Cole Anthony and Kentavious Caldwell Pope. Jace Richardson, being a 19-year-old turning 20 later this year, he's going to be a really really good young guard for them. I think a lot of people slept on him in terms of the draft because of his size being a kind of undersized combo guard, but I really like what he was able to do in his freshman year at Michigan State, averaging 16 points per game, shooting 47% from the field and 42% from the three-point range. That's perfect for that Orlando Magic group that's building a really good young core there. We all know they have Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, who was injured last season, with him being healthy too, being one of the best defensive guards in the league. That's perfect with him being there. They still have Anthony Black, who I think has a lot of untapped potential as well too. And like I said, them trading for Desmond Bane provides them a really good, nearly all-star caliber guard that can be an instant 20-point per game scorer for them and really just help instantly to that roster. They still have young players like a Caleb Houston, but also with that, I like how they drafted Noah Penda, acquired his draft rights from Boston. A really good forward that'll provide some versatility to them defensively as well. They're just continuing to build that young core there in Orlando. So they're building something I really like, and I like that Jace Richardson pick, but also that Noah Penda pick as well too. And the Magic, they should be a dark horse team in terms of making the finals next year as well too, because like I said, the East is wide open. I'm going to say that a lot throughout this NBA offseason coverage and leading up to next season and throughout next season, because that's just a matter of a fact for sure. And I know Cleveland, they had a dominant regular season last year, but we all know they lost in 5 games in the second round, and now at this point they could win 80 games next season. It don't matter because we're going to judge them in the playoffs.
I will say though, they just traded for Lonzo Ball from the Chicago Bulls, so we'll see what Cleveland does. That helps their depth for sure and have a playmaking guard like Lonzo, but still with them it's a wait and see type of approach because their past few postseasons have been underwhelming to say the least. But Kenny Atkinson, it'll be his second year as head coach, so we'll see what he does as well too, because from a regular season perspective they won a lot of games, so if they can translate any of that success to the playoffs as well, they could be a team that makes the finals too in 2026.
That's one thing to be said there. But for the Magic, they're building something really good down there, and I like the young core that they're implementing and drafting Jace Richardson, Noah Penda, among other players to the roster. That's just gonna do nothing but benefit them in terms of a depth perspective and just building a really good young core down there. We're gonna get into the last few winners slash semi-winners. We're gonna talk about it really from an individual perspective because the team situation, yeah, it's pretty good, but I want to talk about these individuals who really have opportunities to flourish in their roles, and some of these, they might be a little bit questionable because the teams that they're going to, and I kind of empathize with them. But for this one, I'm not talking about them empathizing wise because like I said, VJ Edgecombe going to the Philadelphia 76ers, I think that's a really great pick, and you just saw the emotion first and foremost from his draft night alone, just how you were able to tell that him and his whole family situation, him being from the Bahamas, him and his family coming from nothing. I think that just is one thing that really embodies how VJ Edgecombe is just going to go all out for this Philadelphia 76ers team. I mean, he came from nothing and he is going to continue to work. I mean, I don't know if y'all saw this video, but he was literally working the day after in 76ers gear, working out, training, getting ready for, you know, not only the summer league, but just this offseason and continue to grow into the player that he wants to be to help contribute to this Philadelphia 76ers roster that, like I said, has an opportunity to really go deep in the playoffs next season, depending on how things go in terms of a health perspective. So VJ Edgecombe, I think he's a big winner in this draft as well too, because he got drafted into a really good situation, even outside the Joel Embiid stuff, because we know that his health is always going to be a factor for sure, but when Joel is on a court, he's one of the best players in the game. And I still think the second best center in the game after Nikola Jokic, obviously, but VJ Edgecombe, he's a big winner going to the 76ers because he's just going to be in a situation that really is perfect to slide right there into a team under a head coach and Nick Nurse, who we all know won the 2019 NBA Finals with a lot of good young pieces. Not saying necessarily he's the same type of player because he's a little bit shorter than him, but I think he could have like an OG Anunoby type of impact to the 76ers roster as he continues to grow on this team, and I really like him going to that roster, and I think that he's a big winner. Now, this player, in my opinion, I think he's going to be really good. I mentioned him a little bit earlier, but I really don't like the situation that he got drafted into.
They also just traded for Colin Sexton, which I think is pretty random, but yeah, that's a move. Not saying that Colin Sexton isn't good, just saying that the Hornets are all over the place in my opinion, but yeah.
But Con Kneppel going to the Hornets, I think that he's a really good wing. A lot of people slept on him, and I mean, I don't want to say it like this because it might sound bad, but I think a lot of people are putting their thoughts into this way too much. But I think he's really talented, but I think because he's white, a lot of people aren't taking him as serious. But if you watch the tape and you've watched the film, Con Kneppel, he is a bucket getter, and he is really good defensively too. He's not just your typical three-point shooting guy that can't play defense and stuff like that. Nah, Con Kneppel, he is a really good player. And if you watch his film and watch the tape and not just get captivated on Cooper Flag, who I know obviously is a great player, as we all know and will recognize that, but Con Kneppel, he was really good in his Duke season last year. I think a lot of people going into his freshman year expected him to probably be a player that's played at Duke multiple years, but nah, the way that he played it well warranted him being picked in the top 5, and for him being one of the best players in this draft, which he is. He averaged 14.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, and nearly 3 assists, and also a steal per game too. I think, like I said, he's underrated defensively and just from his overall game standpoint. And if you also look at his 3-point percentage, I mean, that's not even nothing to talk about because we all know he's a sniper. He shot 40.6% from the 3-point line, but he also made 84 3-pointers at Duke, and he also won ACC tournament MVP with Cooper Flag being out due to that ankle injury. So like I said, this guy, he gets buckets and he's going to be able to help that Charlotte Hornets roster. Now we'll see if they're able to fit him in the right way because like I said, that team is disorganized, but they're not the only one because another team that is as well as the Washington Wizards who drafted Trey Johnson. Hopefully they're able to fit him in right. I really like Con Kneppel going there, and I think that him from an individual perspective alone, he's a winner, and I hope that he's able to get utilized right. A couple more players that fit into that same similar type of category who I think are winners in themselves, but also I don't like the situation that they got drafted into is Jeremiah Fears going to New Orleans. I think he's a really talented and skilled and shifty point guard. Love his game for sure. I think he's gonna regardless be able to get buckets and be able to provide some great highlight opportunities, and I like his situation. Derek Queen as well too. I like at least that they're going to the same team together. We'll see how they are able to all get it fitted around them, but I don't know because they also got Jordan Poole down there now from Washington. They made that trade for CJ McCollum, so I don't know about that, but we'll see. I do like those two players, and then also I like Trey Johnson, like I said earlier, going to the Washington Wizards. Love his game, love the type of buckets that he gets. I think those type of players who I'm talking about, who I love how they've won in terms of the draft situation, or I'm at least looking forward to them playing in the summer league for sure, so we'll see about that. And I even like a player like a Colin Murray Boyles going to the Toronto Raptors. I put in the intro his reaction to getting drafted. It was obviously a relieved cursing, not a mad about going to Toronto, so shout out to him. I like that situation with him going to the Raptors. Gonna potentially be a 4 in that lineup there, down there with players like a Brandon Ingram in the lineup and RJ Barrett and stuff like that, so we'll see about that situation. Also, it's interesting to me how they allow Masai Ujiri to call him and then just a couple days later get rid of him, so that's interesting too. But yeah, also one more winner to talk about too is the Oklahoma City Thunder drafting a Thomas Swerber, center from Georgetown. The rich continue to get richer, and that's a player they can potentially draft and stash. Maybe might not get the most minutes next season. I believe he's coming off of an injury, but that's a really good pick there, and that's just the first of many pieces in terms of a draft perspective that the Thunder will have, because they have another high potential first round pick next season as well too, which is crazy. So that's a lot to talk about there.
One can probably make the argument that I should put the Utah Jazz as losers in this, but I'm still gonna put them as winners. Like I mentioned in the intro a little bit, Ace Bailey, he's going to end up playing for them, and he's going to be a really good factor on that team. He's going to be able to develop with complementing players like Lauri Markkanen, newly drafted Walter Clayton Jr., as long as he doesn't get traded or anything like that, helping a Walker Kessler, and just really being a part of a young group in Utah under their head coach Will Hardy. He has the chance to butt into a superstar, a young superstar at that. And Ace Bailey, I mean, hey, if he doesn't want to be there after his rookie contract, then they can just include him in a sign and trade after his 4th season in in 2029, whatever year it'll be at that point, 2029, 2030, get him out of there, get some compensation for him. But in the meantime, in these next 4 seasons, Ace Bailey, bro, just hoop, man. This is basketball. At the end of the day, this is the greatest sport in the world that you get to play, man. And hey, we might want to be in a different place or something like that too, but God put you in Utah for a reason, and you were picked by the Jazz for a reason, and the responsibility is to hoop and try to win at the highest level. So like I said earlier, I'm glad that he's in Utah, and I'm going to consider the Utah Jazz as winners in this draft class, because also adding in a Walter Clayton Jr., you have the chance to have a potential perennial 6th man of the year candidate, and maybe even better than that, because Walter Clayton Jr., he was a prolific shooter at Florida. We see it in this past season as he averaged 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists, and over a steal per game. That was for the regular season. And then in the NCAA tournament, he averaged over 22 points per game, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds. So he has the green light for sure, and he's going to be able to help that Utah Jazz team as well too. So Walter Clayton Jr., Ace Bailey, them two alone being a part of their draft is going to help them, I believe, in their future. And it's a tough West for sure. It is very loaded, but that adds some more talent to your young core, and I think that's going to only do nothing but help the Utah Jazz going forward. And they were one of the biggest winners despite all the conversation and drama around the whole Ace Bailey not wanting to go there and stuff.
I'm not going to say that this team is a loser because, like I said, it's a wait and see type of approach for the Nets, but I really don't know if I like the strategy that the Nets did pick, and that's why I kind of put them as a tweener loser, because you want to be able to package some of those picks to go get a player high in the first round, or at least make a trade for an impact player that's a veteran or a young player in the league, in my opinion. Like, I would have liked to see the Nets maybe keep 2 picks and trade up to try to get into the top 10 or higher in the top 10 if I was the Nets. That's what I would have done, and try to go get Ace Bailey, because the Nets was one of the teams that Ace Bailey wanted to play for. I think that was a missed opportunity right there. He could have been going to Brooklyn. So I think that was a missed op right there for the Nets, and that's why I kind of have them as a tweener loser. They drafted a lot of talent though, so that's a lot of guys that hopefully, you know, they throwing darts at the board, drafting 5 picks in the first round. So hey, one of them will land, huh? So I think that's their strategy. I don't necessarily like that strategy. That's why I'm kind of putting them in the losing category, but hey, could be wrong. I mean, like I said, for their sake, they're hoping to hit on one of them. So we'll see see what they do there. I also hope that Young Hansen is really good, but I think that the Portland Trailblazers drafting him at 16th overall, that's certainly a losing move, but hey, he could be really good. I just really question how he'll play defensively on the perimeter, because we see that he's a skilled offensive big man. You see that from the highlights, but I don't know if I like them reaching overall and getting him at the 16th pick when you could have potentially got him at the 2nd round. But I mean, hey, they wanted to get him there. They wanted to ensure that they were able to draft him. So shout out to the Portland Trailblazers for doing that. But I just question it also from a fit perspective as well too, because they just drafted Donovan Clingan last year as well. So I don't know what the Portland Trailblazers are doing as well. And that's a lot of teams. Like I said, you can make the argument there's teams like the Portland Trailblazers, the Washington Wizards, the Charlotte Hornets, all teams like that. They're kind of the same, because like, what are they doing in many situations? Not gonna lie, but hey, we'll see. I do want to talk about some picks that I like that these different teams made in the 2nd round. Shout out to the 76ers. Like I said, they made a really good pick in VJ Edgecombe in the 1st round, but they also drafted Johnny Broome, center from Auburn, who was really good and integral for that deep run that this Auburn team went on in the NCAA tournament. And shout out to him, because I think that he's going to be able to help the Sixers as a backup big man in the future. Maybe might play some G League minutes as well too, but I like how he fits with the Philadelphia 76ers. Adethero going to the Los Angeles Lakers. That's a defensive wing that can go to the Lakers and help in that lineup as well too at some point this year. And he's very athletic as well too. Probably saw that viral video of him kissing the rim. That was pretty funny as well too. And I also like what the Phoenix Suns did. Like I said, they were really in a deadlock situation, but 10th pick overall in the KD trade, acquiring the Rockets 1st round pick, drafting Kaman Malawak. I like that pick because he's going to be able to help set the tone for them defensively at the center position. And they also traded for Mark Williams, so they're trying to ensure that they have some front court depth for sure. They also drafted Rasheer Fleming, getting into the top of the 2nd round. They really did a lot of research on him, and they did a lot of work and acquired a lot of picks to make sure they were able to make that pick at the top of the 2nd round. Provide a piece that can help them from a 3-and-D perspective too. So I like that pick. Also shout out to my high school teammate Marcus Williams, getting a summer league roster spot on the Miami Heat. Praying that it goes well for him, that he's going to be able to get an opportunity to get a 2-way deal from Miami or just one of these teams in general for sure. So shout out to Marcus Williams. And man, I'm just really looking forward to this whole draft, guys, and really this whole summer league. Like I said, I was there last year. It's bittersweet not being there this year, because man, like, you were literally around so many prospects just from a fan perspective as well. But hopefully in the future, I'll be able to be there for many years to come, covering the NBA summer league draft and stuff like that, guys, too, as we continue this sports reporter / sports analyst journey covering the NBA and NFL, because bro, I'm a nerd for this stuff, guys. I mean, as y'all can obviously tell. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the video. It for sure has went longer than I wanted to, but hey, it was a lot to talk about, and I want to be detailed with every single video that I discuss and post on this channel and analyze. So for sure wanted to do that. Y'all let me know your biggest thoughts about this NBA draft, your biggest winners and losers, and stay tuned for more content. We have free agency coming here in the NBA season, training camp with the NFL and stuff coming in later July. So y'all stay tuned for a lot of content that we have to talk about in the NBA offseason, NFL offseason, pop culture videos, shorts, reels, all things like that. Follow me on Instagram at SwaggyRuss, at TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for short videos and things of that nature. Know that you matter. Jesus loves you guys. Y'all keep being blessed. I love y'all. Y'all keep being legendary. Know that you matter always. Peace.